Guys, it's Kathy here, and thanks for joining me for a tutorial on my desktop planner. I made the original with Graphic 45 Ladies Diary collection, and if you want to make the planner with this collection, all of the measurements in this tutorial have remained the same. And I have photos of both of the finished planners on my blog. That's somuchscrap.blogspot.com, and I'm also providing a supplies list on my blog for this project. So we're going to have many parts to this, and this is part one, and I want to show you the remake. I'm using Graphic 45's Times Nouveau Collector's Edition, and so the tutorial will be based off of this collection. And I'll go ahead and show you the inside really quick here. I'm going to move the Ladies Diary over. This is what we'll be making in this tutorial, and here is the back. And you'll learn everything with the closure and everything you need to make this. So let's get started. First we'll be assembling the covers in spine, and for this project I wrapped the chipboard in cardstock. So you'll need to cut 2 pieces of cardstock, 8.5 by 10. I use a textured cardstock from Hobby Lobby that's sold open stock, and it's about a 73-pound weight, and I find that it creases nicely without cracking. If you don't have a Hobby Lobby close by or you live overseas, I've heard that AC cardstock is very similar in weight. So after you have your 2 cardstock pieces, you'll take some 1/2-inch score tape, and on the one piece you're going to run a piece of the score tape on near the edge. Okay, then I'm going to take, and I use an ATG gun, I'm going to take this and run just 2 strips of the ATG right on the other side of the score tape. Now on the other piece, I'm going to turn it over, and because mine is kind of flat on one side and textured on the other, this is the textured side, you're going to put another strip of 1/2-inch score tape on this edge of the cardstock. And then you can run another strip here next to it. You got it on this other piece, so you'll be okay. Go ahead and remove your tape liners. And what you're going to do, and I'll just throw a ruler down here just to make it easier, you're going to take this piece over here, turn it back over, and you're going to overlap this piece by 3 inches. So I'm just going to line it up with the edge of the ruler there, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but I'm just going to adhere those together so that they're overlapping. Now you've got one solid piece here, and you'll take 1/4-inch score tape, and you're going to run this on all 4 sides. Now for the chipboard covers, I'm using 2mm chipboard. You'll need to cut, for your front and back covers, these are 5.5 by 8.5. So you'll need 2 pieces 5.5 by 8.5, and then you'll need the spine piece 1 inch by 8.5. And what I've done is I usually cut 1mm chipboard and then just adhere the 2 pieces together. For these pieces I've used the cinch chipboard covers, but you can do the same thing. Since this is wrapped, you're not going to see any of the edges if you adhere 2 pieces together. On your first piece of the cover, you're going to take 1/2-inch redliner tape. You're going to put a strip on one of the 8.5-inch edges here. And you can use score tape for this if you want. There's not a real big difference in strength. I just like to use the redliner tape on where the spine and covers connect, just for extra strength. Okay, now you'll take 1/4 inch score tape and you're going to place it on the 5.5 inch edges. And the other 8.5 inch edge. Then I'm going to take my ATG gun again, and I'm just going to run a few strips down the center of this chipboard piece. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. And you're going to remove your tape liners. Okay, this is the side with the 1/2 inch red liner tape. You're going to want that towards the center of this piece of cardstock. So what you do is come over here, and if you want, again, you can throw a ruler down. You want to adhere this about 3/4 inches from the edge of the cardstock, and center it top and bottom too, so that you have pretty much a 3/4 inch all the way around. Okay, so 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. And just press that down. Now on your 1 inch by 8.5 inch spine piece, I've gone ahead and put 1 inch red liner tape on this, or you could use score tape. And then remove your tape liner. Now you're going to adhere this right next to the cover piece, and you're going to line it up top and bottom here, and leave, I usually just eyeball it, I'm going to leave a little less than 1/4 inch between these. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to make sure that you've got a pretty good space there for when we fold these. On your second 5.5 by 8.5 cover piece, you'll put a 1/2 inch piece of red liner tape again, and then the 1/4 inch around the outsides of the score tape. Then I'm going to add a little bit of ATG here in the center again. And remove your tape liners. Okay, you've got your 1/2 inch red liner tape is on this side, and that's going to go next to the spine piece. So again, you're just going to leave a little bit less than 1/4 inch between the cover and the spine piece, and that looks about right. And just press it down. Remove the tape liners on the sides of your cardstock piece. We're going to start with this corner up here. I'm just going to fold the cardstock towards the cover. Make sure it's pretty tight, but not so tight that you're pushing through the cardstock. And then adhere that down to the chipboard like that. And then you'll go to each corner and do the same thing. I'm going to take a scoring tool at this point and just right along the edges of the chipboard here with this corner. You're just going to score gently to make this easier to fold over. So you'll do that on all 4 corners. And this is just the way I do it when I'm wrapping chipboard. I know there's other methods out there, but I like to make sure that the cardstock doesn't crack and show the edges of the chipboard. So I found this way works best for me. So once you've scored along the corners, I'm going to take just small pieces of score tape and place it just along the edge there, because we're going to be folding these corners over and there's not going to be anything to adhere that down, so you need to add a little bit of tape right there. Okay, take your scoring tool again and just gently, right along the top of the covers and the spine piece, kind of score a line. You want to do this very gently so you're not tearing anything. Okay, let me remove the tape liners on all these little pieces. Okay, I start from one side and I like to do the shorter sides first. So I'm just going to rotate this, and then you'll just gently pull up on this where you've scored it, kind of get a little bit of a bend to it there, and then press and adhere that down to the cover. Okay, and then I'm going to turn this around and do the other side. Just gently bend it up there and then adhere it down. Now we'll do the long sides. These are going to be, you've got a double layer of cardstock right there, so it's going to be a little tougher to bend that up. And press that down real good in your corners. And we'll turn it around and get this part down too. Next, you'll need to take some 1/4 inch score tape again and put a strip on the cover piece here next to the spine and on the other cover. And you can use a 1/2 inch piece of score tape right down the center of the spine. Now we need to cover this, so I'm going to set this aside real quick, and you'll need to cut a piece of cardstock 8 1/4 by 12, and I'm going to use 1/4 inch score tape again and put it on all of the edges. And then I'm going to use my ATG gun again and run several strips. It does take a bit of adhesive, and I'm just kind of spacing it about a 1/2 inch or so apart. And then you'll remove the tape liners. Some adhesive gummed up there. Okay, now place your covers again in front of you. Remove our tape liners on the chipboard. Okay, now you're going to adhere this cardstock piece to the covers, and you're just going to center it. So you're going to try to get about 1/8 of an inch there, top and bottom, and side to side. Just as long as it's as even as you can get it. It's not going to be too noticeable because this is all going to be covered. Press it down real good. Since this spine is 1 inch, it's going to be a little hard to find it, but just really carefully pull up on one cover to crease that cardstock and kind of help it out a little bit. Okay, and I like to really take it over, and then do the same on the other side. Just very carefully, gently, and help it. Okay, so now we have our covers together, and the next step will be finishing the specialty paper on the spine. So you'll need to cut a piece of cardstock 3 by 8 1/2 and then whatever specialty paper you're using, 3 by 8.5. I'm using a black velvet paper, and I like to emboss the velvet paper, so I've used a 12-inch Cuttlebug folder, and I've already embossed this piece, but I'll just set it in here. Because it's 8.5 inches, I like to have one that goes the entire length without creating the lines that the smaller folders do. So I'll just find in here where I want that to be centered, and then run it through. So I already have that. So on the cardstock piece, you'll take 1/4 inch score tape again and place it on the edges. And then ATG in the center of the cardstock. Just a few strips. And remove your tape liners. And then take your paper and line it up with the top edge and side to side. Get that as close as possible. And then press it down. Okay, so I like to use a Tim Holtz centering ruler for this part, and I'll be punching a hole in this piece for the ring fastener on the spine. So I'll just put a ruler down here again. I use a crocodile, and it's the original kind. So its reach is about 1 inch. So I'm just going to put that ruler at 1 inch on the top edge, and then I'm going to find my center mark of the cardstock piece. And with this being black, I am going to use a Tim Holtz white distress marker, and I'm just going to make a little dot right there on the velvet paper so I can see it when I go with a crocodile. And then punch a hole. So now you have a hole for your ring fastener. And with the ring fastener, I like to put a little bit of glossy accents on the back side of it before you stick it through this hole. Just make sure that it doesn't move around, stays on there firmly. And I'll place it through the hole and open the prongs on the back. And that's the ring fastener. Now you're going to turn the cardstock piece over and place 1/4 inch score tape again on the outside edges. And then ATG in the center again. And remove your tape liners. Now place your covers. They're going to be the outside of the covers facing up, and on the left side you're going to see that seam of the cardstock. So then you'll take your 3-inch cardstock piece, and with your ring fastener at the top, you're going to line up the edge of this 3-inch piece with the edge of that cardstock piece here. And that's going to put your ring fastener in the center of the spine. Don't adhere it down quite yet until you get it positioned so that if there is a little bit of space on the top and bottom, it's it's at least even. It's better to have a little bit of space on the bottom of this than on the top. It's a little less noticeable, and if you're standing it upright or whatever, it's better that way. Okay, and then press it down to adhere. And then gently take your covers, and I do this one cover at a time while holding it, and just fold that like this, and then fold the back one, and then just press and adhere. And then you've got your specialty paper on the spine. If you find that this is pulling right here, because there's a lot of pressure on that spine, I'll go back in. If it comes off or anything, I'll go back in with a glue gun along these edges, and that will hold it down good. Alright, so the next step is the jump rings and the chipboard tag on the spine. I'm using this little chipboard tag from the Times Nouveau collection. And what I like to do with chipboard tags is use the Tim Holtz markers, the distress markers, and ink the edges of the tags. So I'll just take the edge of the marker, and I'm using black on this because I'm going to be using black thread and black cardstock. So I'm just going to ink the edges of this with the marker. And then I'm going to cover the back of this chipboard tag with a piece of the pattern papers because I'm using it as a hanging charm. So I've cut a square of paper from the Hey You sheet in the collection, and I'm going to turn this chipboard tag over to the back side. I'm going to use a little bit of a glue pen here and coat the back of the tag, and then the paper face up, adhere it to the back of the tag. Just press it on there. I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to use an X-Acto knife and just cut around the edges of this tag. And I will be back with this as soon as I have finished that. Okay, so now I have the chipboard tag, and I've cut around the paper with the X-Acto knife around the edges. And I'm going to use Tim Holtz Black Soot for the inking in this album. So I'm going to go ahead and just ink around the edges of this tag, because you'll have some rough edges there with the paper. And just ink them like that. And then we need to punch a hole through the hole in the tag, because we're going to hang this off of the jump rings. So I'm going to use Crop It Out for that. And just carefully punch through the hole in the tag. And now we're going to attach this with jump rings to the spine. So I've already put the jump rings onto the ring fastener, and then you'll just attach your tag through the hole. And there we have the tag on the spine. So now we'll be working on the front cover. Before we start on the front covers, I'm going to cut a piece of seam binding 12 inches long. And this is a Stampin' Up! Cherry Cobbler color. And the reason I'm doing that now is because I'm going to spray a little water on this craft mat and just bunch this up, and I'm just going to drag it through that water, and I need this to dry. You can use a heat gun to get this to dry faster, but I like to just let them air dry. So that'll be drying while we're working on the rest. And I'm going to attach this to the jump rings on the spine. Just wad it up as tight as possible, and then we're just going to set this off to the side, and it can just do its thing and dry, and we'll trim it up and put it on the spine towards the end here.